about Meriam Ibrahim. Christian Solidarity Worldwide provided me with copies of a marriage certificate for Daniel Wani and Meriam Ibrahim and a birth certificate for Martin Wani that it got from Daniel Wani. And that I understand are the same documents Mr. Wani gave to the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum. Earlier today, I emailed your office copies of these documents.
We received your email.
And I was going to ask you about them. When Daniel Wani was trying to register his son Martin as a U.S. citizen with the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum, he provided the embassy with the certificate of his marriage to Meriam Ibrahim. This certificate was issued by the Catholic Archdiocese of Khartoum. It indicates that Daniel and Meriam were married on December 19, 2011 at a Catholic facility in Khartoum. Their certificate was signed by a priest who presided over the marriage and bears the stamp of the Catholic institution where the marriage took place. Does the State Department have any reason to question the authenticity of this marriage certificate that Daniel Wani provided to the State Department?
Okay, so a few points on that. The first is, obviously, I'm not going to comment on the particular scenario, but broadly speaking, because I think what you're getting at is a citizenship question, if I'm correct.
No, I'm asking you about the marriage certificate.
Well,
He signed the Privacy Act waiver, correct?
I understand that.
Right.
We don't adjudicate marriage certificates.
Did he provide you with the certificate?
I'm not aware if he provided us with a certificate or not.
You do not know whether that's the
I
case.
can check. I have no reason to doubt that he did, but I can check.
So did the State Department try to verify that he was married in the Catholic Church in Khartoum and that that marriage was certified by the Archdiocese of Khartoum?
Are you trying to get at the broader question of citizenship?
No, I'm trying to find out whether the State Department ever tried to verify with the Catholic Archdiocese
Whether
of
they
Khartoum
were married?
his marriage, which took place in that Archdiocese.
I can check. I don't know why, if there's a reason we would need to, but I'm not sure why.
Because he gave it to you in an attempt to identify Martin as his son.
To prove citizenship. That's what you're actually getting at.
No, let me ask you about the birth certificate.
I'm just trying to get to the crux of your question.
I'm trying to ask you about whether or not the State Department examined that document and whether it authenticated that document.
If there was a reason to,
Yes.
if there was
because Meriam Ibrahim is his
Take it
wife,
down.
she's in prison because she is a Christian.
Yes, and we have been very clearly raised our concerns about the case.
Let me ask you about the birth certificate. You have the birth certificate that I sent you.
You emailed it.
correct?
I don't have it in front of
All
me.
right.
You emailed it to my office.
My understanding is this is the same birth certificate that Mr. Wani gave to you. It is a birth certificate for Martin Wani. It says he was born on November 25th, 2012, which is 11 months after Martin and Ibrahim were married. It says Martin's father is Daniel Besencio Wani, who is a Christian. It says Martin's mother is Miriam Yahya Ibrahim Ishaq. It says that the date of issue for the birth certificate was January 2013, and it includes the name and signature of the Sudanese government official who issued it. Did the State Department attempt to authenticate that birth certificate with the government of Sudan?
So what I am telling you is I am not going to adjudicate citizenship claims from the podium. And if this is referring to a potential citizenship question, we will, of course, let me finish before you interrupt me, please. I saw you were ready to pounce. That there are certain requirements that must be met under United States law, which I think we can all agree is important, for parents to transmit U.S. citizenships to their children. These are very clearly outlined online. We will look at any relevant information that could play into that, but it's very clearly outlined online, the requirements that must be met. So
I've read the law.
If this was part of it?
The law does not require a DNA test, correct?
I'm not going to adjudicate a citizenship case.
It requires a preponderance of evidence.
I'm not going to
Did
adjudicate.
Mr. Wani provide
Can you let me finish before you interrupt me, please? That's how we do it in this briefing room, even with Matt. I know, he's not here this week.
This case has been quite much in the news recently. It would seem to me that you would get the facts straight. Did Mr. Wani provide you with that birth certificate for his son, showing that he was born November 25th, 2012, in Sudan, and that the mother was Meriam Ibrahim? Did he provide you with that birth certificate?
I am not going to comment on the specifics of any adjudication that's happening in this case. I'm just not going to comment on what's happening on the ground.
Is it a fact that the State Department, having that birth certificate, did not need a DNA test, but it chose instead to demand one as a matter of discretion? Is that true or false?
There are certain, as I just said, I am not going to adjudicate the details of the citizenship. What I have said is there are certain requirements that must be met for parents to transmit U.S. citizenship to their children. This can only be done after a consular officer abroad examines the evidence in the application. To transmit citizenship, obviously there must be a biological relationship. U.S. regulation authorizes the Department to request whatever additional information it may need to establish the U.S. citizenship of a child born abroad to a U.S. citizen parent or parents.
Authorizes but doesn't require.
Again,
is it not a fact that the State Department was not required to demand a DNA test, especially after it had the birth certificate?
I think I just made very clear that our consular officers have a responsibility to look at any information they deem necessary to determine U.S. citizenship, which I think we would all argue is important.
So as of this moment, the State Department is not denying the authenticity of the documents that Mr. Wani provided to the
I'm
State
not
Department.
commenting on the authenticity one way or the other.
You won't deny it.
I'm not commenting on it.
And you won't say whether the State Department
One
has
way or
even
the other.
attempted to authenticate those documents.
I'm not going to get into the specifics of the investigation
And he
that's
signed
going
a
on the
Privacy
ground.
Act waiver, so you may, but you're choosing not to.
Someone signing a Privacy Act waiver does not then necessarily mean that we discuss all the details of their case. If you were overseas and we were adjudicating something that was private to you, I think that people recognize, quite frankly, that there are some details we don't discuss.
Do you think Mr. Wani would be upset if you recognized his son as a U.S. citizen and accepted
We're
that
not
birth
going to get into the
certificate?
details of the adjudication process, and I think I've exhausted this topic.
Just to follow up, do you
and then
consider Meriam's children in jail with her to be U.S. citizens?
As I just said, I'm not going to adjudicate citizenship claims from the podium.
Do you in any way challenge the validity of his Catholic marriage to Meriam
I
Ibrahim?
just said I'm not going to...
Does the State Department
Did you forget what...
recognize
I'm
his
not going to
Catholic-
answer any more
Do
questions
you
if
in any
you
way
interrupt me.
challenge the
We're
validity
moving
of
on.
his Catholic
Samir,
marriage?
Yep.
I have one question on this.
Okay,
actually,
Joe.
Which is about the little girl who was born
Uh-huh.
a couple of weeks ago to Miriam.
Yes.
How is she going to get a birth certificate?
Again, we're looking at the case. We're concerned about it. We have not been more clear that we're concerned about it, and it's very complicated. I'm not going to get into the process of how we're adjudicating it on the ground.
Just when was the last time that consular officials managed to see Mr. Wani? You said last week that he'd seen them on Thursday, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Has he been in contact, or have they been in
Most
contact?
recently on June 2nd with Mr. Wani.
Just want to follow up. Is the State Department making any efforts at least to free the children from jail?
Again, we've said very clearly that we are in contact with her lawyers, particularly. She has full legal representation. We continue to call on the government of Sudan to do a number of things, including respecting the right of freedom of religion.
Would this be something that a potential nominee or the ambassador at large for international freedom could help with?
Of course, they could help with it, but there are a number of people working on this very hard every single day.
Is there any update on the
No
nomination?
update on that.